Hola amigos, hi everyone. How are you this afternoon? Hola Adrian, hola Donna. I hope you're having a fun afternoon with us, with Hego, or maybe fun evening or morning, depending on where you are. I ran fast from my other tour that just finished some minutes ago to my starting point. So I hope I am on time. Thanks so much for coming, for joining, for being on time, for being punctual for this tour. Buenas tardes, Michelle. Gracias. Thanks for coming. Hola, Diana, de nuevo. Muchas gracias. I hope you enjoyed this one too. Gracias. Thanks for coming again to Lima virtually. And today we are going to talk about the UNESCO Heritage of Lima. And my starting point is a dramatic starting, and I will tell you why in just a little while. But first, let me present myself to you all, to my friends that have been here in many occasions virtually in Lima with me, and also to our new friends that possibly for the first time are joining my tours in the city of Lima. Hola, hola, hello to you all. Be welcome. I hope you find something interesting to learn here in Lima with my tours, in this one and all the upcoming ones that will be also soon in the platform. Hola Luigi, hola, thanks for coming. Hola Barbara, Diana, gracias, thank you so much for coming. And well, my name is Vanessa Vasquez. Hola Carmela. I am your Lima City guide, and today, thanks to Hego, I'm going to be showing you the historic center of Lima, and we're going to focus in the history of how downtown Lima became a UNESCO site. So in this series of collaborations that my colleagues in Latin America are doing, my friend Sayuri, for example, Grace tomorrow, Renan also, Elizabeth, and all of us in Latin America that are trying to show you not just the traditional destinations. We want to go with you off the beaten path. And in this search of bringing complete, new, and interesting content for you all, we came up to the conclusion that it's necessary to show you not just the history of a place, but also to show you how these, for example, sites, historic sites, have coexisted with the low-income people that sometimes live in certain areas, or the people of the vicinities of that areas, right? This is the case, for example, of the tour of today. We are going to learn about the historic center of Lima, but also we're going to learn about the impact of Lima being a UNESCO site, the impact in the locals. We're going to learn about how much, for example, UNESCO had invested in this historic center. And, well, what is the future of Lima as a UNESCO heritage site? So I hope you enjoy very much this tour. We're going to be in the historic center of Lima. All your questions are welcome. Please keep that in mind. I love questions, and questions actually help me to learn more because, well, I am a human. Sometimes I don't have all the answers, but your questions help me to improve every time. So don't be shy with them. And, well, I hope you enjoy this one a lot. So are you ready to start? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready, or a heart, or anything you have handy. And let's do it. Muchas gracias. Thank you, amigos. Gracias, gracias. And well, vámonos. Let's go. So we are now in a location that I've never been able to show in Hego before. And thanks to the request of my friend Sayuri, that we were discussing and conversing about how we should board this theme today of the historic center of Lima, it was necessary for us to start in a location that will be a good introduction to the historic centers we are showing you. and also to the presence of UNESCO needing to take care of this site. So first of all, we are above a bridge in which also, from which we have a really nice view of the city. So you can see Lima's proximity to the Andes, to the mountains. I started this tour also pointing out in this direction because here we have the mountain range we call the Andes, the foothills of the Andes. And you can see also a zone that we call shanty town or former shanty town, because nowadays they have electricity, they have water, they have everything. So this is a zone that was inhabited, the zone in front, in the 1940s. This is considered the first shanty town of Lima. That is, by the way, St. Christopher Hill. I'm going to remove my finger in a moment. A bit of the walls. I think I lost connection just for a little while. Is that right? And you still see low sound. Yeah, it was a little drop in the connection. I saw also a little drop, a little look, but no worries. I'm here. I'm again here. So we have in this section evidence, archaeological evidence of something really interesting concerning to the history I'm going to tell you. Diana, the name of the hill is Saint Christopher, San Cristobal, San Cristobal. Saint Christopher is the patron saint of the travelers. Actually, the Spaniards named that hill after that patron saint because there was a fight in Lima a few years after the conquest of the city and the foundation of Lima in the year 1535. So a couple of years after, there was a confrontation between the indigenous and the Spaniards, and miraculously the Spaniards won against all the odds because there were more the number of indigenous. So because of that, Francisco Pizarro decided to name that hill St. Christopher because he commended to St. Christopher and he put a cross on top. I will show you in a little while the hill better when I move forward. But before that, let me show you this. This is, oh, you're welcome, Diana. This is the only evidence of the original wall of Lima. Lima City, you know already from the story of Francisco Pizarro being attacked by indigenous Incan generals, right? That Lima was a very attractive place during the times of the conquest of this territory for indigenous fighters who wanted to expel the Spaniards. And also later on, when the pirates and corsairs came to the coast of Peru, because, well, Lima, Peru had a fame of a producer of gold and silver. So this territory was constantly attacked. So it was necessary that the Spaniards, conquistadors, proceed with a way to protect the city. So the construction of the walls of Lima started at the beginning of the 17th century, around the year 1610. And this period of construction lasted actually for several years. But here you can see a wall, part of the wall. Can you see it, by the way? This wall, which used to be very long, it used to go around the city. It had a length of 13 kilometers. It was a very long wall, used to protect the city from the pirates and the corsairs. And by the way, look at this construction here. This is a ancient evidence of a house from also that period, from the early 17th century, that was located right next to the wall. Somehow the years passed, so the house was abandoned and was covered with more material eventually. So it remained below a house, a colonial house that was here above, for a long period of time, until the decision of creating the park you see here, that is nowadays called the Park of the Muraya. Muraya refers to wall. And during the excavation period of this, or process of this site, the archaeologists discover that construction, that colonial house, or the foundations at least of that very, very simple, modest colonial house, possibly a house of a fisherman, because this was one of the accesses to the river. In this direction, you don't see the river, of course, because it's now very low, the level of the water is between these two walls. So there we have a river, Brimac River. Brimac River is the one who gave name to the city of Lima. The pre-Hispanic men used to call this place possibly the city of Rimac because the river was called Rimac. Rimac comes from a Quechua word that means the one who speaks, the one who talks. It actually comes from the Quechua word rimay, which means to speak. So when the Spaniards came, they asked to the locals, what is the name of your town? And the locals said, well, Rimay or Rimac. And the Spaniards did not really understood very well the pronunciation. So they said, oh, Lima. And that's why the city is named like that. So it's actually something that happened a lot in Latin America, right? So we have here, I think, a better view of the hill of St. Christopher. And I hope you were able to take a picture. And over here, even better, some parts, little sections of the original wall of the city. 13 kilometers of wall. And by the way, the material that you see here, which is the original one, is a mix of pebbles. Look at the pebbles, actually very big, in a cement-like material that was made from sand, from limestone, water as well. So all of these mixed together created this cement. The wall used to be 6 meters tall. Oh, gracias, Jill. Thank you. Indeed, the climate is collaborating also for us all to have really nice views. So the section where I am standing, by the way, my friends, is a part of the city that until the 1990s was all covered with houses, with sort of like a very, very simple, very model houses. Some of these houses were all colonial constructions, like shacks, let's say. See, there's a wedding, right? That's right. I was focusing more in my story, but let me give you at least a view. I think this is a couple, bride and groom, that were here taking their pictures also because the view is really fantastic here. So, well, I was saying that this whole section where I am in this moment, you used to have, I think you call them like shacks, very simple houses, occupied by poor, modest people. So what a big difference between the Lima of the 1990s, the late 90s, and the Lima of nowadays. Maybe you remember the houses across, right, the river in the hill, right? Remember that was the first shanty town of Lima. So there was a big difference between the Lima of across the river and the Lima of this part of the river in the 1940s when the first shanty town emerged. This part of the city was very posh, very elegant, very rich. Across the river was where the poor people live, the migrants, the people from the Andes who were looking for opportunities in the big city and had no chances actually to overcome the big gaps of discrimination and the lack of education that put them in a big disadvantage, right? So the people of the rich part of Lima, the descendants of these wealthy Spanish families, once conquistadors of this territory, they started to dislike living in this section because we used to have lots of houses. You can see, for example, this house here, which used to be also part of the slums. And I will also show you all of this section used to be like which were abandoned. And later on, when the houses were abandoned, the poor people across noticed that. So they said, why? Oh, why houses abandoned? Oh, sorry, are we losing the sound? Please let me know if you are not hearing me correctly, so in that way I can move forward a little bit. Sometimes, yes, it must be a little bit of the connection, because sometimes it happens in certain sections the wind is a little bit strong. Let me move a little bit forward. See, in and out. Okay, gracias. Thanks for letting me know so I can keep walking. It's a very strong light outside, so sometimes I don't see much what's in the screen. So I'm going to move forward, and I think here we will get a better signal. So let me just move, and here, hopefully, internet is going to be again strong. Let me know how is the connection, my friends. Do you still have the same difficulties? Can you hear me? Good. Okay, gracias, James. Thank you. So we can still continue with this story here. Because the story also is connected with these houses in this section. So do you remember, I was mentioning, I hope you were able to hear, that in the time of the 40s, between the 40s and the 90s, there were many houses abandoned, right? Colonial houses abandoned. The rich people left. So what happens is that in this section, in this part of Lima, the poor people from across decided to move, because there was nobody here. There was nobody taking houses. There were empty houses. Nobody cared. The owners left to the United States. The owners left to Europe. So, why not? So this is why they took the houses. And there are many people that are living for over 30 years in this location without paying taxes, without paying for a rent. So this is something we're going to be talking about in a little while. So, we are walking now in direction to one of the first sites that UNESCO was interested in to rescue. In particular, it was not the Historic Center of Lima. It started all with this building we are going to see in a moment. And of course, UNESCO, which is an international institution that protects the heritage, the World Heritage, is an organization that belongs to the UN, to the United Nations, but it's a specialized institution, is the one also that protects buildings, sites, and sometimes it could be cultural also events that are very special, very meaningful for humanity. So it's not just buildings, it's not just about protection of buildings in the case of UNESCO. So this building here is the one that first received the protection of UNESCO, and it was proposed, of course, first by the City Hall of Lima, because that is the system. So the City Hall, the local authorities propose a building, a place, a site to UNESCO, and UNESCO has to vote. So there is a group of 25 persons, if I remember, that take a decision if this place worth to be supported and have the distinction. So this was the case with this building you see over here, right? So this is the Church of San Francisco. In the year 1989 is where St. Francis Church, the famous church of the catacombs of Lima, was the site that received the first protection. Can you hold lower to see the top? Oh yes, of course, Michelle. Actually, are you ready for an Adam shot? How many of you know Adam, by the way, our guide in Budapest? So I think for those that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to turn the camera on one side so you can have the whole picture of the front. What do you think? Okay, so I think you can have a better view in this angle of the building from the bottom to the top. See? Okay, so I'm going now to move again the camera. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, So the Church of St. Francis actually is one of the oldest churches we have in the historic center of Lima standing. This is a church that had survived earthquakes, that has survived the passing of the time, many destructions, but it still is here with us, and it's amazing. It's an amazing example of how Lima, has overcome so many difficulties. So this construction, by the way, thank you so much, Hans. Muchas gracias. Thanks for your tip support, by the way, my friends. It helps me to continue creating tours for you all. So this construction you see here is from the 17th century. We had, most of the churches of Lima have a past that is actually older than the time that is associated to the creation of the church we see in this moment. Because, for example, there were 3 churches before this one in the same location, but the earthquakes destroyed all the other churches, so they had to be reconstructed from scratch. So this is the case of this one. This church is from the year 1645, and it is one of the oldest examples of Baroque colonial architecture of Lima. And here we have the church, monastery, the Monastery of the Franciscans, which is a famous museum. This is the museum also called as the one of the catacombs, because there's underground catacombs in this section. So the first site proposed to UNESCO was this one. And of course, UNESCO considered it a good addition to their list. So in 1989, UNESCO gave a large amount of money, actually, for us Peruvians, about $20,000 to protect this building, to restore this building. Nowadays, we still have Franciscans living over here. This is a home for the Franciscans monks, although the number of Franciscans is very small. This museum is self-sustained, and thanks to the initiative of those $20,000 in infrastructure, in restoration, this museum now is self-sustained completely. So this is a very interesting case of how UNESCO started to put attention in Lima. And also, gracias, Diana. Also, we have over here another part of the house, which, this one did not have the same happy ending like the rest of the house of the Franciscans. Why I'm telling you this? This is one of the oldest chapels we have also in Lima. This is the chapel of our Madam of the Loneliness or the Solitude. And this construction, which is actually as old as the monastery, unfortunately passed through a terrible event. There was a fire, an unintentional fire that occurred in the year 2002, and it destroyed most of the church inside, although the front looks pretty much like intact. Inside, it was all burned. The main altar, the side altars, everything. So, because the previous, let's say, good relation between the monks of the Franciscan order and UNESCO, there was a petition from the city hall involving also the friars of St. Francis Church to receive help from UNESCO to continue with the restoration of this building. But the answer was no. So not necessarily in every case UNESCO will be willing to let's say to donate this let's say money. And how much was asked? It was asked $30,000 to restore this building. So it was it is a complete restoration, right? But in this occasion, UNESCO was not able to give that money. It was in 2002. Did the city rehome the people living in the colonial houses? Oh, excellent question, Sue. And actually, that's where I'm going with the next part of the story. So this section, for example, which used to be one of the parts in the historic center of Lima that was occupied by the squatters, right? Nowadays, don't have any squatting, right? Nowadays, there's nobody low income living in this section. They were removed. So how this happened? Well, the process started in the 90s. Downtown Lima was in the early 1990, for example. It plays very dangerous, lots of, let's say, thieves in the streets. We were also still living the times of the terrorism, political insecurities, really complicated situations. So this is also one of the reasons why it was necessary that the City Hall would do something about this. Right? Downtown Lima, also there was a project for making it a main touristic destination. But Lima was not ready for that. Right? So, well, then in the year 1991, Lima was officially in the list of UNESCO. The historic center of Lima was a UNESCO site. And Lima is not the only one. And actually, we have a very long list of sites UNESCO. For example, the historic center of Cusco is UNESCO. In the year 1983, it became part of the list. We have other sites like Chavín de Huanta, that's an archaeological site in 1985. We have several archaeological sites. The historic center of Arequipa also, where my friend Elizabeth lives as well, a UNESCO site. So we have in total 13 UNESCO sites in Peru. Lima is, of course, this prestigious place with so many historic events that have happened here, architecture like the one you see here, colonial balconies, for example, that are still alive in this section. So this part here, what you see, is restored completely, in part thanks to the cooperation of UNESCO. So when UNESCO agreed in protecting the historic center, because the City Hall of Lima asked UNESCO to include this section, well, UNESCO said, muy bien, okay, but we need to start with the process of gentrification. So maybe you know what is gentrification, right? Gentrification is basically changing a neighborhood, bringing, let's say, affluent people, right? Or businesses, right? So that's the idea of gentrifying these sections, this site. So, well, Lima was still far from that reality. Remember, all of this section where now we see these really nice souvenir stores. I have also another one I will give you a view. Look at this. So we have, sorry, I hope I'm not moving too fast the camera. So we have here lots of businesses. But these houses, you see here, look at inside. This is an old colonial house, right? This is possibly the porch, the entrance into the colonial house that has been completely adapted to be a store, several stores actually. So this process was painful because the people who used to live in these houses that were abandoned by their original owners, they did not want to leave. But they couldn't afford to pay taxes. So there were some solutions given. For example, this section over here, right, there is behind this part, there is a door, which that one here. Also, that is the entrance into a section of apartments, which are sort of like modest apartments, basic apartments, where the former squatters can live. So there is a passage that goes inside, and you have some tiny, small, modest, but very nicely located apartments. So that was an option. Of course, they had to pay for that. What a beautiful street, Lilian. Yes, indeed. I would love to live actually here. But it was given, hola, Nicolas. It was given as a priority, this section, for the former squatters, right? So the City Hall used, I think correctly, the money that was given by UNESCO. Do you know how much UNESCO gave to the City Hall of Lima when we became, a UNESCO site? Who wants to guess? Who wants to guess how much the Historic Center of Lima received? Anyone would like to guess? It would be very fun, by the way. So let me tell you how much the Historic Center of Lima received. Muy bien, Carmela. Thank you, Grace. Muy bien. Zero, Teresa. Well, it's possible, right? Natalie, $100,000 US. Yes, we are talking in US because it's US the amount the UNESCO gave. Muy bien. 1 million, Colibri. So well, actually, you think very kindly of UNESCO. UNESCO didn't give us that much. It would be lovely, indeed. I think we deserve it, but maybe it was not in the possibilities of UNESCO. UNESCO gave us 48,000 US dollars for protecting the historic center of Lima. For the plan of gentrification and, let's say, improvement of the historic center. Yes, Natalie, 48,000 US dollars. And this information, actually, you can access to that one, the same way I did, in the website of UNESCO. I think it is called whc.unesco.org. And there you have also the information of all of the documents that UNESCO has also official for everybody to use. No, not really much actually. Yes, not much. So this is, but it was used to restore the historic centers. Why I'm showing you this house? This is the old Bodega y Cuadra house, one of the gentrified zones in the historic center. In the 1990s, thank you, Gail, muchas gracias. In the 1990s, this house you see here used to be a shanty town. It was like squatted for several families, and the house was in really bad condition. Oh, gracias, Tracy. It's so nice that you found it. So you can later give a look to that one. Maybe check on, let's say, your own UNESCO sites. In all of this section that you see here, the entrance, the porch of the house, used to lead to a patio and underground rooms. And the house in its full used to be all occupied by squatters. It was like whole complete occupation. But thanks to this restoration of the historic center, and also for using money of the city hall, because the city hall also has its own money for this project, they moved the people, the low-income people, to the apartments next side. And they started to work in the restoration of this house. And they found here some interesting archaeological elements, like, for example, porcelain, Chinese porcelain, right, from the 17th century. They found also vessels, tiles, so elements that were original from the colonial times that were in different parts of the house. So this is one of the stories, the cases of a zone that was gentrified and turned into a museum. Nowadays, this is a museum, as you can see, Museo de Sitio Bodega y Cuadra. And who was Mr. Bodega y Cuadra? The main owner of this house was a adventurous man, a wealthy, very rich, we will say, naviero, which means specialized in sailing and sort of like exporting and importing of products. And this man was an adventurous himself, because he was also involved in the discovery of Vancouver Island in Canada. This man was actually a very interesting personality, character, and that was his house. So that's why we discovered different elements from different parts of the world in his house. So let me check if there is a question. Historical surface. Yes, actually, Grace, I do think that the house that Mr. Bodega y Cuadra had was more like colonial. What is the colonial element that we are missing here? The wooden balconies that are closed, enclosed balconies, right? These are open balconies. The open balconies are more connected to the Republican period. You can also see these two examples over here. So which ones are the colonial balconies? These ones here that are completely enclosed. Which ones are the Republican balconies? We can see these ones here, right? Open. So these are the differences between them. Oh, gracias, Grace. And for later investigations, check out also the discovery of the Vancouver Island in Canada, and the participation of Mr. Bodega y Cuadra, Juan Francisco. I was forgetting his first name, Juan Francisco Bodega y Cuadra. Gracias, Grace. Gracias. And you have lots of links to check actually after the tour. We have also here another important building, part of the UNESCO section, which is giving us also another, let's say, time of the history of Lima. This is the train station, the Desamparados train station, We used to have a church, a beautiful church in this section, the Church of Desamparadas. Desamparados means helpless ones, but it was destroyed to build this train station. It is indeed very, very sad to see such destructions as damages sometimes in the architecture. And this is why UNESCO also is important, because it avoids destruction of buildings like just for, building something new. There is a whole process, of course, that you need to pass to build something new, right? But is it always good to have this process that is so slow, that you need a specialization, you need a specialist, that are approved by UNESCO to mediate, to work in the sites? It is not always good, because let's remember that there are also people living around that have their businesses, that have their stores, that have their hotels. This is also another colonial construction. Cuadra Island was named after him in British Columbia, Canada. Yes, that's right, Teresa. I remember also Mr. Juan Francisco Bodega y Cuadra. At one time in the history of the Vancouver Island, the island was called also, or was supposed to be called, Vancouver and Cuadra, or Cuadra and Vancouver, for both discoverers of this island. But at the end, it just became Vancouver. So this building here is an old hotel, actually very famous because a murder happened in this hotel. This is the Hotel Comercio, part of the historic section of Lima, the UNESCO site of Lima. And this murder that happened here in the room 98 in the hotel is remembered as the murder of the Peruvian Jack the Ripper. The Jack the Ripper of Peru, a handsome Spanish man who murdered his friend, also Spanish as him, possibly in a fight related with money that, one on the other. So he, in order to cover the evidences of his murder, he cut in pieces the body of his friend, put it in different suitcases, and he took them into another hotel and abandoned the country. But at the end, he was repatriated from Panama. So this is one of the most interesting cases, and it happened in the beginnings of the 20th century. So, this is a story that is very famous in Lima. So here we are walking very close now. We are very close to the main square of Lima. And also some other really interesting things to mention. So at the end, we come to the conclusion that UNESCO help, of course, in big way to create the historic center we have in this moment. We had the potential, but without UNESCO, its support, its name, and also its economical initiative, we would not be able to walk alone, like give the first steps, like a baby, no? We need first to give the first steps, and then after we can do it on our own. So this money UNESCO gave it, because it was given once, right, to support the place, and then after we have the commitment to continue working in the favor of these buildings. Many of the businesses that we have here are not always happy with being in a UNESCO site. If you want to open a wall, if you want to fix, a part of the house that is falling because of the earthquakes, anything that happens in a historic house, you need to invest a lot of money in restoration. And first of all, you have to wait the city hall to do an inspection of these buildings, and after that you can proceed paying also a certain amount of money, and in some cases the city hall is the one that will find the right specialist. So it's not an easy thing if you have a business to depend always on other institutions, right, to do restorations, to increase your business, etc. Right. So the poor people that left this section of Lima, some of them did not want to pay for an apartment, some of them did not want to pay taxes because they had no money to do that. So unfortunately they were just evicted, and this is actually something that did happen. Well, this is not only uniquely something from Peru. It happens in different parts of the world too. So, but let's also think in the other way. No, these people were living for 30 years without paying any taxes in properties that were not theirs. In some cases, if you live in a house for 20 years, sometimes you can become owner of that house. And this is also what had happened in some cases too. So, the majority of the people in the historic center, the ones that are considered the most modest, the population in danger, let's say, are usually people elderly, over 65 years old, that are no longer working. We have actually a large number of people of that age gap living here in the historic center, the ones that were not able to move out. And also we have lots of children here, minors. So over here, the main square of Lima. And the main square of Lima is the heart of the city. Today, we are seeing that we have some gates around the main square, and maybe you know about the spilling of oil in the coast of Peru. Have you heard about it in the news? Maybe it was a tragedy that happened some days ago, last Saturday, so far I remember. And there are many protests happening related with this because unfortunately many people are seeing that nothing is being done to protect the species and the beaches that are being damaged by the oil spill. So this is why the city hall has decided, and the government has decided also, to close the main square to avoid protests. But let's walk around and also talk about the importance of this section. Oh yes, Tracy, did you hear about it? Really sad, by the way, and we are also expecting to see how this is going to be given a solution. So the section where we are, the main square of Lima, was declared the historic center of the city, the foundational stone of Lima, in the year 1535, when Francisco Pizarro, the conquistador Pizarro, decided to create in this place a city that would turn not just into his home, his permanent home, also in the capital of his territories, the territories he was conquering as a conquistador. It was important for him to determine a residence location and a place from which he will be organizing troops to defend different locations in the country. In theory, he should have selected a place more central, possibly in the Andes. And he actually tried to do it first, but the elevation of the Andes was way too high for him, and he decided to move to the coast, to the lowlands. And that's why he came to this territory, because it was a midpoint between the northernmost part of the territory conquered by the Spaniards in Tumbes, and the southernmost in the Andes, Cusco. So this was a central location. I'm seeing some questions. So where is the traffic? Well, Alison, since also the transformation of downtown Lima into a UNESCO site, it was in 1991 officially. It started a long time ago. But we have been given what we call baby steps, right? So first was gentrifying, like removing the people that were squatting the houses around the perimeter, the closest perimeter to the main square, which is the heart of the historic center. Then another part was starting to invite businesses to come to occupy those lands, those homes that were now ready to receive businesses. So we have achieved that too. Then next part was creating a pedestrian area around the main square. So turning this into a pedestrian zone. So in that way, we will have more tourists coming, more even locals. Oh, look at the bride. She's there. So she's going around the whole main square to take her pictures. So to bring, of course, tourists, right? And to make them feel comfortable, to avoid the traffic, because the traffic sometimes creates not just the pollution, in fact, the sound pollution, it's too much. So the idea is that people will have the chance of enjoying this section of the city, and maybe like having coffees on the streets, and that is the next part. So the project is not done. We want to achieve this in approximately, we hope, we would say 10 more years, if it's possible, to consolidate it for maybe close to 2030. And we're going to see this plan, which is quite long, finish when the whole historic center will be pedestrian, and when we will be able also to have cafes in the streets, cultural activities, and more. So we are seeing here the house of the President of Peru. What an important structure here. And we have also all the buildings like the City Hall in this direction. The City Hall is from 1941. The Government Palace is from 1937. All of these buildings over here from the 40s, by the way. This is what we call the neo-colonial style that became the trend in the 1920s until the 40s. And here the Cathedral of Lima, a cathedral from the year 1649 too. So, well, this is a little bit of how the historic center of Lima has been impacted by UNESCO. And at the end, what we can say, is that UNESCO has given the historic center the opportunity to strive, to flourish. Without this nomination, without this protection, Lima's Historic Center would not be able, the famous site, touristic destination we have here in Peru. But also, this nomination has changed the life of the people of downtown Lima forever. And not always for the good, sometimes for the bad, because they were not able to continue living here. But it has given opportunities to people to establish businesses, to bring also, let's say, formal activities, allowed people to have the opportunity of pay the taxes, the rents. So this is sometimes has been a win-win, sometimes not. But this is how usually life is, right? So I just wanted to give you today an insight of how UNESCO has impacted the life of the historic center inhabitants. And I really hope you enjoy this tour, you enjoy learning this story. Thank you so much for your participation, and thank you so much for your support. I know that there have been some little loops in the internet. I hope you still were able to hear most of my explanation. And well, indeed, if you want to learn more about Lima, about the historic center, please follow my channel. In my channel, I usually bring like new content all the time for you all, for the ones that are interested in the history of Lima, for the ones that are interested in learning about the culture of this part of the world. So if you want to follow my channel, just have to look for Vanessa in the search tool in HeyGo, and you will see Vanessa Lima City Guide. Or, well, you can go to www.heygo.com/Vanessa with V and double S. Thank you so much for your support. It really helps me a lot. You have no idea how much it helps me, my family, and also HeyGo, because all your tip support is split with HeyGo. We usually say that tips is something we give aside. But in this case, this is the only payment we receive. Your tips, we all tour guys just live from your support directly. So thanks so much, and God bless you all for that. So muchas gracias. I'm seeing also some comments here. So let me see if there's any question. We are coming to the conclusion of the tour, but I'm just checking on maybe a question or something. Well, thank you so much for that. Oh my gosh, the light is so strong. I don't barely see what's in the screen. So gracias. Thank you so much gracias, Saskia. I'm just seeing a little bit of the message here. Gracias. Thank you so much, and thanks for your support. And see you soon. See you next week. I hope you come to my next tours. Thanks, Sayuri, also for your initiative in creating this wonderful event, because it was Sayuri's initiative. And here we are, like happy to collaborate also with many different themes. So bring the themes you would like us to dig in. Let us know in the Facebook group, maybe in my Facebook group, no problem. We are very happy to dig in interesting historic topics. So see you soon. Muchas gracias. Gracias, gracias Tracy. Marek is around here taking care of me. Gracias, gracias, gracias Dorota. Thank you. Muchas gracias. I really appreciate it. I will say Marek. Thank you. Bye bye. Vanessa, what is the name of the park where it starts? Oh, yeah, it's the Park of the Muraya. In Spanish, it's Muraya, Muralla, which means wall, because it's a park dedicated to the wall of Lima. It's the only part in the historic center where you can see the original wall of Lima. The rest is gone. Gracias, gracias, amigos. Gracias, Nicolas. I hope you had a nice birthday. Take care. Bye-bye, my friends. Ciao, ciao. Thank you.